Perspectives, Finding Common Ground, a podcast series that brings together a panel of thought leader perspectives as a forum to socialize and problem solve education technology issues with the goal to ultimately find common ground.
Welcome to Perspectives. Today we're going to be talking about alternate methods of engaging students with instruction. We have three wonderful guests with us today. First, Phil Hintz. He is the Director of Student Information Services at Barrington School District. Next, Dr. Helen Crompton, Professor of Instructional Technology and Director of Virtual Reality Labs at Old Dominion University. And finally, but not least, Chris Aviles. He is a teacher and the founder of Garden State Esports. We're going to start with a couple of minutes from each of our panelists today to talk about their perspective on alternative methods of instruction. They each have a little different perspective with different tools. And I guess we'll start with you, Phil, if you could, please.
Sure. Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having us to be able to talk, and I'm excited to hear from our panelists as well. My passion lately has been in augmented reality and virtual reality in classrooms. The metaverse, which we've all seen Facebook's commercial, which is not Facebook anymore, it's Meta. And the metaverse as we know it today. While that's on the commercial side, on the education side, it really has a place as well. And that's where my research is going lately. I'm very excited to see the potential of it. If you think of the movie, if you've not seen it, Ready Player One, it was released a couple of years ago. In fact, the author has written Ready Player Two. It shows you a unique perspective of what the world may be like in the future, being able to be in reality and in virtual reality. And that all the opportunities that comes with that aspect of it is just incredibly exciting from an educator standpoint, for teachers and for students, for learning life skills and occupational skills, career opportunities. But just learning anything, it is a way to draw students in engagement-wise. Whenever we introduce it to students, their eyes just open up and just so many sparks of learning happen immediately in either realm. So if you're not familiar with AR, it's augmented reality. It's reality that is augmented. So you have real things going on, but you're enhancing them with computer enhancements. Virtual reality being nothing real. That's the kind of the other end of the continuum, and it's all virtual. It's all computer created, and of course it would take at this point a headset, to be able to visualize that. Not just a headset. There's other parts that play into bringing you into a virtual world. But both of those technologies offer an amazing opportunity for students to be engaged and to really experience their learning. So that's what I have to say.
Fantastic. Dr. Crompton?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. That's what's really interesting me at the moment. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and in fact, all the other technologies I am very much interested in. There's no one technology as a cover-all. But the reason why I've chosen artificial intelligence is it's a real game changer. We had two major events, in my opinion, over the years. We had the move to mobile technologies, where you could be on the move for learning. Learning could happen in situ. If you're talking about kind of pond life, you could be there with your mobile device. It's kind of like a brain extension, thinking about the zone of proximal development, those type things. So that was a huge game changer. Artificial intelligence is the next game changer in education for me. And it's not something new. We had artificial intelligence since the 50s. But what's new is people are more ready for it now. And with everything that we're suddenly kind of moving on and the money's being spent, the funding's kind of going to looking at these things, we are now moving on leaps and bounds. However, artificial intelligence is such a powerful tool that, again, it comes with a lot of learning, that it can be used for negative side as well as positive. And it's disrupting learning. Again, thinking about mobile devices, do you remember they got banned from many schools for learning? And there was a huge thing, and people are forgetting about that now. But now AI is the next big thing. And in a way, when it causes so much disruption, it's kind of, that's exciting. That means it's super powerful. It's just knowing how to use it and when to use it. So I'll pass on.
So I teach middle school STEM, and I've noticed for most of my teaching career is that my relationships with kids a lot of times gravitates toward gaming. Who's playing what they're playing, who beat what boss, and stuff like that. And as somebody who's gamed my whole life, I always wanted to start an esports team. I always wanted to find a way to get esports into my schools. And since 2011, I'd been trying, and it wasn't until 2018 I was finally able to convince my district to let us try this competitive gaming thing. And so what we decided to do was, find some schools in our area. We set up some, video game competitions and games like Rocket League. And it was going fantastic. We had a lot of kids coming out, especially kids who weren't involved in other things because they considered themselves to be gamers, which is so often dismissed by people as not being, an important thing, in these kids' lives. But it kind of started to take off. And then the pandemic hit. And what was interesting is we didn't have to really cancel our seasons. We were able to mostly keep going, even in the face of the pandemic. And so because I had a little bit more time during the pandemic and hearing the stories of not just my kids, but kids who were playing around the league, that we just kind of cobbled together, I decided to start a nonprofit. And so now I run Garden State Esports, which is a teacher-run scholastic esports league. I guess it hit at the right time, and we currently have about 40% of the schools in New Jersey playing in our league. And it's become this really meaningful after-school program that schools are adopting. But surprisingly, or maybe not, it's not the competitive gaming aspect that schools are gravitating to Garden State Esports for. It's the SEL benefits and the CTE career opportunities. And so we're building this entire network in New Jersey where these kids are gaming against each other, and they're getting those traditional SEL values of teamwork and leadership and competition and competing against rivals and things that they care about, the games that they care about. But we're also backing that up with team journalists and team statisticians and team broadcasters. So we're bringing in that career piece. And so as we slowly scale, hopefully to eventually have all the schools in New Jersey, the thing that I'm continuing to learn is that when we take what kids love and we use it to teach them what we want them to know, it's a lot more meaningful, right? Tangential learning, these kids will self-educate and are more likely to be excited about content that is given to them through something that they already care about. And so, you brought up Ready Learner One. One of the things that we used esports for in my district, because, I coach a team as well as running on the state level, is we started an esports book club because we identified, at our school at the time that those kids on the team weren't really into reading. So we read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and we talked about how that translates into gaming. We brought in Ready Player One, Ender's Game. And so just these high interest books to these kids that were already into gaming, we're continuing to be able to engage these kids, which, especially before the pandemic, a lot of people scoffed at. I couldn't get ISTE to do a session on this 4 and 5 years ago, and we had 5 hours on the main stage the other day. So it's amazing to see how like AI and like VR and AR and all this amazing stuff that's going on, it's slowly being adopted and used in meaningful ways to, at least in my world, engage, these K through 12 kids. So it's fantastic.
Fascinating. I'm very intrigued by this, and I like the conversation in terms of how you're actually using it, and it's extending into other practices like the statisticians and the reporters and whatnot. Do any of you have examples of where the technology can be used to modify instruction and how it changes the instruction that you can bring up? I mean, I like those. Are there others that you can share with us? I guess I'd start with you, Ellen, if we could.
Yes. There's so many ways it can be used, both nationally and internationally. And what's interesting is I'll ask people, I'll say, are you using artificial intelligence? And they'll go, no. Or I think I might be, but they have no clue. Like Google,
I have Alexa. Right?
You'll have Alexa. There you go. That's artificial intelligence. And we have all sorts with Google search that has RankBrain now and BERT, which are so much improving what we can do just with search. In Translate, there's just so many places it is, and people don't realize it is. So it's improving education in so many ways. But I'd like to give you an example, because people often say, oh, it's kind of a high-end, those with money are kind of using it. But I've seen extremes of, I work with developing countries with the United Nations, and I've seen artificial intelligence there doing amazing things, such as being a coach for at home, where children have homes where they can go and the parents have had lots of education and they can get lots of help with homework and examples and, just so much support that way. Artificial intelligence tutors can work alongside with the parents of those families that don't have those opportunities. So instead of the cycle of those that have the intellectual families that can help push them on, you've got these other families over here that get stopped often, not from the lack of love or effort, it's just they've not been in that system. So AI is greatly supporting with AI tutors and many things that are actually free that they can do that way. And that's happening in a lot of developed countries as well.
Fascinating. So there's equity. There's an equity
Huge
component
equity
to
piece.
this, and wonderful.
I would
Wonderful, Phil.
kind of go along the same idea in both of your realms. When when you talk about a number of years ago, AR and VR, you wouldn't see downstairs in the ISD hall. You wouldn't. There wasn't anything out there yet because it was still in development in a lot of ways. And today there are several places you can go. And I give the example of Merge Cube, for example. You'll see Merge EDU now and the Merge Verse, Eduverse, downstairs. But that Merge Cube was this little plastic cube, or actually a rubbery cube, that actually came out at Walmart, at a local department store. And it was there, and it was for bringing augmented reality. So with the Merge Cube, you could use an app on your mobile device, either a phone or a tablet, and through the software, that Merge Cube that you're holding in your hand, when you look at it through the camera of a tablet or a mobile device, could become the planet Earth, for example, and you could peel back the layers and see the mantle layer, and then get down to the core and turn it around. And as you turn the cube in your hand, you're going around and you're seeing the map of the world. Or it could be the human heart, for example. You could have the human heart in your hand, and you could look at it and see the left ventricle, the right ventricle, the arteries and the aorta. It was amazing to be able to do that. And yet it was at Walmart. Okay. So it was at Walmart for, I would say, $20, and it didn't sell. And I think that was the Christmas season, holiday season, like 2017 maybe. And it wasn't, but educators who got wind of it and knew what it could do said, I'm going to buy it. But they didn't buy it when it was there at Walmart for $20. It was when Walmart said, hey, this isn't moving and we're going to sell it for $1 a piece, or I think maybe it was $5 a piece. So I get it. It got down to $1. I literally went to Walmart and I went to several Walmarts and bought 3 or 4 of them. That's not a commercial for Walmart, but I will tell you, I have a friend also, Felix Camino, who teaches down in Miami. He went and got a whole cart, and he tweeted out his cart that he had filled with Merge Cubes, because we knew the potential of these things. And it wasn't until the teachers started using it and engaging students with it and tweeting about it and sharing their experiences with the students that it didn't start taking off and becoming, viral in essence. And because of that, Merge EDU evolved and the Merge community evolved. And that's just one of many devices, but that was a cost-effective device. It could be put in any student's hand. You could have one for every student in the classroom. And the apps were free at the time. Now there's a whole enterprise platform for it, but it really allowed that technology to take off. And sidebar is developing now. Teachers wanted to develop more and more content for it. So it not only did it develop the community of teachers and people sharing ideas of how to use it, but also sharing content creation for it. And so now you see other vendors downstairs that's their niche, they show you how to create the content that you can then apply to the different vehicles for the AR and VR.
So clearly, it's among us, it's around us today, and in very visible, available places, and there are benefits. But I've heard you mention that it's a challenge. I also heard you mention that it's a challenge, that it's not easily adopted and people don't want to hear about it. Can you talk a little bit more about why you think that is? And maybe, Chris, you can start this.
Well, I mean, for me, coming from, the classroom in K-12 and that space, I think a big part of this is that many people have trouble imagining a classroom other than the one that they were taught in. And so if you were to come to my classroom, I'm very lucky. I basically have an esports arena as a classroom, but that's also helping kids get excited for STEM. And, when we bring in, talking about artificial intelligence, we're even already trying to rethink what esports can be. And so one of the things that we do is we have an entire tournament using something called Rocket League Bot, which allows kids to program these cars in Rocket League, which is a game that they all play. And the cars will actually learn and adapt based on what they code. So as they run them through simulations of the game, the cars get better at, playing the game. And so we have these entire tournaments with these, AI powered cars. And I think part of the challenge too is there's only so many hours in the day. And so for me to go and learn how to do that type of program and bring it to the classroom is difficult, right? Because I still have my lesson plans to do, and I still have to make sure my kids do well on the state test and stuff like that. But, I would love to see more PD opportunities around different things like this, and would love to see districts adopt more of a PD model that's ongoing, because I'm sure that there's tons of applications that we could get into schools, but we just don't prioritize in a lot of ways. I think teachers being able to select what they do with their time and giving them the space to go out and learn something new to bring to their classroom, right? We always have the same 3 PD workshops. And then I think the other side of this too is the parent education piece, right? Helping them understand that they can have their kids learn in a classroom that looks different than the one that they grew up in. And we've been having a lot of success. I think in a lot of ways the pandemic has helped that. And like you had said, the advancement in mobile technologies, and it's always funny to see a parent who comes up and shows you the new app when they come to pick up their kid after school, and look at this cool thing that it does. And AR and VR and even LiDAR, we had a whole company in town that came and scanned our school. And then we had the kids go virtually throughout the school and remodel things and figure out how they would redesign the school. Then we built it in Minecraft. And, when you have these practical applications for it and kids get to be a part of that, I think the parents can start to see, or whether it's their board of ed or administration, wherever that sticking point is, they can start to see not just the real world applications and how you're still hitting the learning standards, but then how can you also get them to realize that this is where the careers are. A lot of people who were hesitant about esports, when I told them what New Jersey's doing and how they're going to have so many STEM jobs, now they're more open to the idea, because they're realizing kids can follow their passion for gaming into a very lucrative STEM career, because you can't be serious about STEM and not be serious about gaming. We're serious about STEM and applications in AR and VR and AI and stuff like that.
Innovation too, right?
This is where it's all going to be.
Innovation too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well,
in terms of innovating and having an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, that goes a lot of times back to that PD piece, is when our teachers during the day given that time to innovate and say, hey, we're going to give you a couple hours, every couple weeks to get with your teaching team and figure out, like, how could you do something that you're currently doing in a new, exciting and engaging way. And yeah, I think that's innovative, is something we could do on the PD side of things, please.
I think that's it. I think you've hit the nail on the head, that we're talking about very, very innovative technologies, and it's there, it's available, Walmart.
Yes.
And there's so many. I mean, we got to learn how to use pizza boxes to make Google Cardboard and put the little lenses in. There's so much out there, but it's education, time, going to teachers to be able to actually learn these, but also having those teachers like those that come to ISTE to be kind of teacher leaders, say, oh, look, I've just learned this, and taking it back to the schools to learn a lot more. So yes, it's very much those, for example, that are coming to ISTE and presenting, taking back to the school, even just kind of taking back ideas from the expo hall about tools that they've learned that we could explore together. So it's really, the technologies are great, but they can be great and they can just be sitting there on the shelf and never be used unless the educators know how to do it. Given that time, given the incentive as well to learn, because I was 16 years as a classroom teacher and there's no time for anything. So we need to be actually given time to actually explore these things.
I would say it's incentive, but also encouragement to take risks. Because,
yes,
I'm sure, Chris, in your case, and in your labs as well, there's plenty of failure going on.
Mm-hmm.
People are falling on their faces in terms of exploring esports and oh, that didn't work so well. But that's okay. Hey, what can I learn from that? How can I make it better? And like you said, the cars are learning themselves how to improve their times. And with artificial intelligence, it's getting smarter on the fly. And I think teachers need to be given that liberty to understand that it's okay to fail. It's okay to learn from that. What is fail? It's first attempt in learning, right? So I kind of come at another side of the coin where I think it also does a great job of including all students. Chris, I know you have already alluded to that. In my perspective, I have a son with special needs. He has Down syndrome, and he wants to be a firefighter one day. And he's 18 years old. Actually, he just turned 19 yesterday. And I look to virtual reality as a way for him to learn those life skills and occupational skills. He knows every truck in a firehouse. He knows every tool in the firehouse. He knows what it's used for. He's been to many firehouses in our neighborhoods, in our area. He knows the lingo. But if he were to get a job there, would they ever let him honestly fight a fire? But in virtual reality, he can go fight that fire day in and day out and never have to worry about getting burned. And if he does get burned, that's okay, because he's not really getting burned. It's virtual, right? Mm-hmm. So he can learn the skills. He can learn to successfully fail to become a success ultimately afterwards. And so as I'm doing my research, I'm looking for AR and VR to help students with special needs, students with intellectual disabilities to be able to learn life skills as well, even as much as utilizing going shopping in a store and understanding how to do that. Virtual reality, augmented reality, even using a credit card swiper, for example, takes some skills to learn. We take it for granted, but for special needs students, it's something that they need some practice with if they're going to get it right and be able to purchase their items. So why not practice that in a simulation environment that AR, VR can do, probably esports can do as well, right?
And that's one of the things that we're excited about. I mean, I'm kind of a data nerd and I do as much surveys as I can. 11% of our league has an IEP 504, autism spectrum diagnosis, or otherwise some type of disability. And some of these kids, either maybe don't have a interest in traditional sports, or maybe they have a disability that doesn't allow them to play traditional sports. They're able to find a home, at least in esports. And, the other stat we're really proud of is 46% of our kids don't do anything at their school but esports. So we're finding ways to maybe get these kids who are underserved or, not, we call it that homeschool connection, and finding ways to get them involved. And then, having a great partner like Microsoft who has adaptive controllers that they give us whenever we need it. It's really amazing how we can try to be as inclusive as possible and things that we can do and the technology that empowers us to get that stuff done. So, it's I'm thinking about one of the boys who, I basically hired at a state level. He's wheelchair bound, and even, holding a controller is difficult for him, and he likes games, but maybe not at the level he wants to be a competitive gamer and play in the league. However, he's the best Twitch moderator I've ever had. And he takes it so seriously, and he gets all the stats together of our stream for us. And, he engages with the audience in the chat, and he makes sure everybody's acting appropriately. And, just it's about finding a home.
There's a place for him, right?
There's that sense of belonging that, he matters. And his, he's basically building his community management skills, which is a very real job now. One of my favorite things to point out is, like, if you've ever seen New Jersey's Twitter account, I don't know who runs it, but they're hysterical and they get paid really, really well.
Yes.
And so somebody like Casey, he can go and, take the skills that he's learning as the Twitch mod for us and go apply them, because he's really good at managing a community. And he told me he never, outside of his own stream and watching streams, he's never done something like that before. And here he is running it for us at a state level. It's wonderful.
So we've got a couple of different perspectives here, a couple of different angles on this. One of them is we've got K-12 instruction, and we also have higher ed. What's the same and what's different in the use of these different tools for instruction?
I was just going to say, I think we're following in the K-12 world, and we're watching and seeing all the amazing things that are happening in collegiate esports and all the work that you're doing, and finding ways to, okay, what does the high school version of this look like? What does the middle school version of this look like? And like I shared, like, introducing that AI kind of tournament is a lot of these kids' first, foray into that. But it's funny is then those kids are the same kids that come to me and they're like, okay, it's funny is I, baseball cards growing up, and how did you figure out the value? You had to go look it up in like the Beckett guy, and it took forever. And these kids are like, hey, we know that the cars can learn and figure it out. Is there a way we can make something that could scan a Pokemon card and tell you how much it's worth? And I was like, I don't know. Let's go figure it out, and working with them, because obviously I'm not an expert in all these different things.
Didn't you just have a student that has gotten a full ride scholarship for esports as well?
We placed our first kid full ride to play Rocket League, and so it's that kind of thing too, where whenever I need that support, I'm finding somebody, and they're almost always in the collegiate space. And I've found that they are incredibly giving of their time. And when you say, hey, I'm working on a project with a kid, and, I do the thing where I stick the kid in the Zoom call with the expert and say, hey, I'm in the room if you need me, but, hey, tell them what you need and tell her what you need and figure out, maybe we could do something. So I know that I take a lot of inspiration, from what's going on up there, because I feel like the collegiate level, is obviously at the cutting edge, a lot of this stuff. And then I look at it and say, okay, if colleges are teaching it, there's probably going to be jobs around it. How do I introduce it in third grade, and how do we get better at it in middle school? And how do they, build out a resume at the high school level that they can then apply and come, learn from you?
And I have a very different take.
Point, counterpoint.
Yeah.
Counterpoint.
Why we're here.
In that K-12 are the real innovators in education, only for the fact that they've had pedagogical training. So they've had great training in how to do this, what it looks like, because we know what information we want to get across. We've got these tools, but how do you do it? In higher ed, it's fantastic. There's a lot of people that really, really know the stuff. However, they have not had training and pedagogy, what would be actually andragogy in adult learning. So they don't have a lot of that. So I'm often looking and bringing examples from K-12 saying, look at what they're doing. You might have computer science. Again, they know the computer science things, but computer scientists need to work with the educators to understand all those pieces. K-12 kind of have got the full package. But so it's a different way of seeing it. But I'm thinking with your question as well of what type of how is it different age ranges? It's that experience. Again, we've got a great wealth of knowledge in higher ed, but it's also when you're thinking of technologies, it's how you're using it, what you're using it for. So in AI, and I know I've not given too many examples, so I'd like to give a few more for AI. Presentations. We have presentations, K-12, higher ed. We have to have students kind of get used to presenting. And that's a very scary thing. So artificial intelligence, again, embedded in all sorts of things, including PowerPoint. PowerPoint, many years ago, I was saying, oh, death by PowerPoint. And I wanted to use everything but PowerPoint. And then suddenly, AI was introduced to PowerPoint, and now it's PowerPoint on steroids. So I get students that before the presenting class, I'll say, okay, go and use the AI feature, the coach, rehearsal coach. I'm not sure if they've seen this, but what happens is they prepare the slides. AI can actually help with that. They've got a design feature where it'll put images in for them, organize it on the slide, do all sorts of things. I actually do that constantly.
Based on the content.
Yes. And for example, I can have a list of 5 things. So I'll just throw my list in and it will immediately give me choices down the side of, oh, you might want these icons next to it. You might want it up there, down here, whatever. They make it look very pretty. And so I can just focus on the content, but then I click on the coach. They can tell you with a rehearsal coach, it can tell you how fast you're talking, your intonation, your facial expression. It can even tell you if you've got certain words that might be even offensive, or if you're saying a lot, like we all do, I think. And it'll pull all those things out, and you can practice as many times as you want. There's many other works for AI, such as learning analytics, data analytics. So supporting students with those tools, including like Grammarly, to help with their spelling. So there's so many supports that it can help with students as well as admin side. And I believe you use AI as well. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, because I'm still in the classroom and I'm also trying to run this league that's getting so big, is I got an AI program that will actually take, hour-long video game matches and then cut it down into a highlight reel. And it assigns this, hype score to it, because if the casters are getting excited, it can look at that, the audio piece of the file and say, oh, there's a big spike in, I guess, volume. That may be excitement. And then if it's an hour-long clip, I could say, hey, cut it down to 1 minute. Or if I'm trying to get stuff out for TikTok, I could say, hey, give me 5 30-second clips and stuff like that. And it's such a massive time saver for me, because editing video takes forever. And, in an effort to get more people to know about it, it's a great way for me to just get out little content snippets for social media, throw something in Discord for the kids to see. So I know for me, it's a fantastic time saver.
This is fascinating, and it's clear that there are many, many, many more ways that these engagement methods can be applied and the benefits from them. Can you think of just maybe 1 or 2 other places that there's impact from using artificial intelligence and VR and AR that are particularly impactful that you can think of? Bill.
I was just going to say, with VR, as I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, is the ability to not only experience worlds in a new way, but to be able to accomplish tasks, kind of where I was leading with my son, being able to learn how to be a firefighter, accomplish career goals and career simulations, so they can get really good at what they do. I think, from a sports standpoint, if you're an athlete and you want to improve if you're a baseball player, if you want to improve your throwing speeds, or the AR can pick that up. You can do it in virtual reality, practice it, get better at it. It can analyze, using the AI part of it, can analyze whether or not your arm is at the right arch and the right pitch. And so that's from an athletic standpoint. But from maybe a musician standpoint, I'll take it to the arts, and that is we've had tools like Smart Music, for example, that actually analyze. And I used to be a former band director, by the way, that analyze a student's performance and playing to see, again, the intonation part of it. That's important. Playing a trumpet, playing a saxophone, maybe violin. But as you're practicing it, are you keeping the tempo? Are you dropping the tempo? Are you being expressive enough? Are you playing at different volume levels? Are you playing the appropriate volume levels according to what's in the page of music. Smart Music can analyze all of that and give students a score as they're practicing, and they can actually turn that in. We've used that in our classrooms as well at different times, where the students will, particularly during the pandemic, they would use that and turn that in as their assignment to their band directors when they couldn't be face to face with their band director.
So I'm hearing also this creates different ways to take on challenges, different ways to pursue a goal. And it sounds an awful lot like entrepreneurship and driving towards new and creative ways of solving business solutions. Am I off base?
No, I mean, and we have a little bit over 5,000 kids in our league, and a little bit more than half of them play the game. But the rest of those kids, and even some of the students playing the games, fill a role on their team, because one of the things we try to get the teams that are joining us, and even what I teach during the school day, is entrepreneurship. I encourage the teams to think about not just their team as the competitive gaming piece, but as an actual business. And so having those marketeers on their team and event planners who invite the parents and set up the event so they can watch the match. And a lot of kids and clubs will go out and try to get sponsorships because they want to get jerseys, or if they don't have the tech, they want to raise that money. Entrepreneurship winds up being a great catch-all for a lot of this stuff, because it's, when you get these tools of AI and VR and stuff like that, kids find all these creative ways to solve problems, and a business is really just, taking these solutions and getting them out there. And so we have a lot of programs at Garden State Esports who treat their esports program as a business, and they run it like a business. Even my own esports elective that I teach to my students, we do all of the business stuff during that period that, these $1 million esports, professional companies are doing. They're doing the marketing, they're doing the social media, they're doing the data analytics, and, they're looking at the impressions and how they could get, a bigger audience. And then they could take that audience to go get the sponsorships, to get the new jerseys, or to get the, devices or whatever it is that they need. So entrepreneurship, in my mind, is a great way, once you have the tools, right, to focus a kid's energy in something real and authentic. Because business is just such a problem solving experience.
We saw that through the whole football season, the NFL football season, where you kept seeing stats powered by AWS, and they've got sensors that are in the footballs as they're throwing the ball, they're getting the stats, and I'm sure that's important as well. And that's,
exactly.
Part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would say, but I don't know if you realized it, but you already covered anyway, the AI. Really, it's in everything we do.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about those, no, it's great. It's when you're talking about those real innovative things, the AI comes in and it's smart. And talking about entrepreneurship, the biggest thing is we can empower students to do things. And AI is a huge empowering tool. I remember years ago, I'm sure we've been in technology for years, that we used to be told by the technologies what we were to do. We were ring-fenced that you have to do this. Now it's us saying to the technology, we want you to do this. So entrepreneurship, it's just there with AI and these tools that we're using today.
I've been around long enough. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm also a Trekkie. And you think about Star Trek, and back in the 60s, Gene Roddenberry, who started Star Trek back in the 60s, I remember them talking, computer, tell me this, computer, how far away from the planet, computer. That was, 50 plus years ago. And here we are. It's a reality for us. What a visionary he was to bring that to us. I think of the flip phones that we have, that we don't even have anymore, that were communicators back in Star Trek, that are...
And the tricorder.
Yes, the tricorder.
Measured, there's about 7 million out there for the company that can make the tricorder.
Right.
That they're trying to offer out, and they are
for health
close.
And that sort of thing.
We have a lot with watches and things
Wearable
like that.
technologies.
With watches and things.
Yeah.
But we're probably a lot closer to these things. What we saw as future is actually...
Sci-fi is not reality.
Yes.
And not virtual either.
I am so thrilled with this conversation. I don't want it to end. I'm really enjoying, and I want to kind of summarize a couple of the kind of key themes that I think have been talked about here. One that we are using and experiencing these alternative methods all around us every day today, and we probably just don't realize to what extent. I think another takeaway is the opportunities for the use of these is immeasurable. The opportunities are unbounded, and it doesn't sound like there are any real restrictions to what's possible using the creative mind and the creative mind and empowerment that these tools offer our learners and in their pursuit of new goals. I think it's often also it's a challenge to explain to people where the opportunity is. And I can say personally, not diving into it a lot, I've learned so much about how they can be applied. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity. And I also think that it's happening and the rate of adoption of these is increasing. It sounds like more and more. Are there any other key pieces that I missed in those takeaways?
I will say one thing again, and I think you kind of hit on it, is age doesn't matter either. Entrepreneurship and things, we're having very young children getting grants for a fortune for their ideas that they're having, doing all sorts of things, like Quizlet that we all recognize. That was a 14-year-old, I think, that created that. It's, yes,
or
it doesn't
photo
matter.
math. When you think about the photo math app, which can take a picture of the problem that's in their math book and solve it for them right on the
Yeah.
that was created by kids who needed to solve a problem.
That's it. So we've got a new generation of children coming through thinking, okay, we should have one of those. And it's not kind of, oh, when we get older, we can do that. No, it's
here
go
and
ahead,
now.
do it now.
Here and now. Brilliant. I want to thank our guests today for taking time out of their busy schedule here at ISTE. You're all presenters here. We appreciate you spending some extra time with us and talking about this really, really interesting topic. And I want to thank our audience for listening and remind you that if you have any ideas, thoughts for different topics for perspectives, please email us at perspectives@classlink.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. ClassLink is proud to be the meeting place to facilitate these conversations. If you have a topic idea, send it to perspectives@classlink.com. To keep hearing our perspectives, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.